Welcome into Outkick the Show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope wherever you may be across this great nation, across this great land, that you are having a fantastic start to your week and that it's going better than it is for Browns fans or University of Tennessee fans. We got a lot to get to in the wake of the NFL and the college football week that just passed. We got to talk about the Browns collapsing, Daniel Jones mania, Patrick Mahomes dominating Lamar Jackson, Jim Harbaugh collapsing, Georgia outlasting Notre Dame, the University of Tennessee stinking on an epic level, the SEC power ratings, the Outkick top 10, Jalen Ramsey is sick, and AB's tirade yesterday morning before kickoff. But we begin with the Cleveland Browns. Your boy here said, whatever happens with the Browns, it's going to turn into a big issue. If they start off slow, it's going to fester and it's going to grow into a bigger and bigger issue. I think last night was close to a must-win. I think this coming Sunday against the Ravens is absolute, positively must-win, or disaster is going to befall this franchise even this year when the expectations were so high in the AFC North. In particular, think about what happens if Cleveland loses again. First of all, Freddie Kitchens, the moment looked too big for him. The man ran the ball on 4th and 9 with a Heisman Trophy caliber winning quarterback under center, Baker Mayfield. 4th and 9. Do you know how long it's been since a team ran the ball on 4th and 9 in the NFL? I'm telling you this right now. Pause for a sec. Since 2007. It's been 12 years since a team ran the ball on 4th and 9 in the NFL. Freddie Kitchens did it. He said, you can blame me. We should blame him. But we should also blame Baker Mayfield, who's fallen off the face of the earth this year. He spent too much time posing with tigers. He spent too much time talking trash about Daniel Jones, who now looks way better. He spent too much time shotgunning beers when everybody else in the NFL went into the laboratory and figured out a way to stop him. And now the Browns are in trouble. Here is the upcoming schedule for the Cleveland Browns. It begins on Sunday against the Baltimore Ravens, and then it gets worse from there. You go Ravens all the way across the country to the 49ers. You come back home, I believe it is, against the Seahawks. I'll tell you for sure, because I'm about to look at the next four. I think there's a very good chance that they could find themselves, that is the Browns, could find themselves sitting at 1-6. And all of the optimism and all the excitement is gone. Ravens this week, they are a 6.5-point underdog against the Ravens. All right, that is, bar none, a must-win game for the Cleveland Browns. Then they go to the 49ers. Then they host the Seahawks. Then they go to the Patriots. The Cleveland Browns are staring 1-6 squarely in the face, and everything would come undone about everything that they built. Baker Mayfield is a shell of what he was last year. Odell Beckham Jr. hasn't made their team any better at all. This is an unmitigated disaster for the Browns coming out of their loss against the Rams, where they were frankly not very good. Speaking of unmitigated disasters, the University of Michigan is an unmitigated disaster now under Jim Harbaugh. Do you remember when your boy here started saying that Jim Harbaugh was the most overrated coach in the history of college football? And everybody who was a Michigan fan used to come back yapping at me in a big way. By the way, shout out Detroit. We're adding the latest affiliate, Detroit, 11:30 a.m. If you are in the Detroit area and you want to listen to Outkick the coverage on your regular radio dial, we are now on in Detroit all 3 hours every day, 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern. You can go listen all over Detroit. And what you could hear me say is that Jim Harbaugh is the most overrated coach in the history of college football. I'm not saying he's bad. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that he's awful. I am saying that relative to expectation, and also the way he's talked about, as if he is Nick Saban, as if he is Urban Meyer, as if he is Dabo Swinney, I would argue with you that Jim Harbaugh has gotten more positive press than Dabo Swinney has, despite the fact that Dabo has won 2 national championships. Jim Harbaugh is the most overrated coach in the history of college football. I got some stats that are going to blow your mind to help make this case, all right? Jim Harbaugh, since he got to Michigan. 1-9 against top 10 opponents. He is 1-6 on the road against ranked opponents. 0-7 as an underdog. 0-4 against Ohio State. 0-3 in the last 3 bowl games, and this one is shocking. The last 3 Power 5 conference teams he has played against: Ohio State, Florida, and now Wisconsin. His team has lost by 21 or more in each of those games. The only 2 wins that Jim Harbaugh has in the last 5 games that he's coached: MTSU and overtime against Army. I want you to think about that for a second. The last 5 games that Jim Harbaugh has coached, his team has 1 regulation win, 3 losses by 21 or more to Power 5 conference teams in Ohio State, Florida, and in Wisconsin, and 1 overtime win over Army. This is an unmitigated disaster. Now, I don't know what's going to happen, but the offshores now have Jim Harbaugh favored to not be the coach next year at Michigan, which suggests potentially that he goes back to the NFL, because I don't think Michigan's going to fire him. But if he loses to Ryan Day this year, if he loses to Ryan Day to make it 5 straight losses to Ohio State, is it possible he goes with his tail tucked between his legs, scurrying back to the NFL? This is one of the all-time great overhyped arrivals. Jim Harbaugh has reached his apex, and the team has begun to decline. This is an ugly performance by Harbaugh. I think he's likely to lose to Notre Dame. I think he's likely to lose at Penn State. I think he's certainly likely to lose to Ohio State. That's 4 losses right there. I don't think he's going to get past Indiana or Illinois or Maryland easy, and that is a sign that things are not going well at Michigan. When I can look at basically the rest of the schedule, and I don't feel good about Jim Harbaugh's chances there. I appreciate everybody finally joining me on the Jim Harbaugh is overrated train, but I've been driving this train for a long time like crazy. All right, how about Georgia Notre Dame? The signature game of the weekend in college football. What did we learn from Georgia Notre Dame? I feel a bit like this is a primary, and the guy that is the story is Notre Dame because he did better than his expectations were. Yes, Georgia won, but Georgia didn't dominate Notre Dame like I thought they likely would. When you looked at Georgia's running attack, when you looked at Notre Dame's rush defense, I thought Georgia would come out hot and put this game away early. Instead, Notre Dame's up 10-7 at the half. Yes, in the second half, Georgia sort of vice grip defended them and figured out exactly what they were doing. But at the end, I didn't like the management of the game by Kirby Smart, and Notre Dame got the ball back with a chance to win, had a Hail Mary effectively thrown up by Ian Book, and it wasn't answered. But, man, this game, I actually left thinking, you know what? Notre Dame, and I've been making this argument for a couple of years, Notre Dame was historically the most overrated team in college football. And that was because so many people on the East Coast didn't watch college football, but they got votes in the AP poll, and they would vote for name over actual talent. So Notre Dame was the East Coast version of college football because all the Irish people voted for Notre Dame. They liked Notre Dame. They paid attention to their history, their pomp, their circumstance, their pageantry. But the actual results on the field didn't justify that praise. Now I think Notre Dame, and by the way, that's proven by data. If you go look at the history of the AP poll, the most consistently overrated team in college football is Notre Dame. I think people have become aware of that, particularly in my universe of the media. And so now there's an over tendency to destroy Notre Dame. I actually think Notre Dame, under Brian Kelly, has gotten better on the offensive and defensive lines of scrimmage. I think they've produced more skill talent. I think they are good, but not elite, all right? They're a good team. They're a top 15 caliber team now. Sometimes in the past, like when they played Notre Dame did Alabama for the national championship, I'm not sure Notre Dame was a top 25 team. I don't think Notre Dame would have finished in the top half of the SEC the year that they went 12-0 and played against Alabama and got boat raced in that title game. So I think the bias has become less pronounced, and I left that game, honestly, thinking I wasn't as impressed by Georgia as I thought I was going to be. Now, I'm a big Georgia guy this year. I got Georgia on the futures tickets. I bet Georgia a lot. I think they are the undervalued team relative to Clemson and Alabama, the most undervalued team out there. But I wasn't as impressed as I thought they were going to be. I thought they were going to wipe out Notre Dame. They didn't. Now, I don't think Notre Dame's going to be in the playoff race because there are 5 SEC teams inside of the top 9, which, by the way, is a great stat. No other conference has ever had 5 top 10 teams. The SEC has done it 18 times. That's an unbelievable statistic. Let me hit you with that again. No other conference in America has ever had 5 top 10 teams. The SEC has done it 18 times. That's pretty remarkable, okay? So while I thought Georgia gets the credit for the win, everything else, I wasn't as impressed by Georgia as I thought I would be in this game. Now, that's my takeaway there. I think you need to use Jake Fromm a little bit more. I think you may need to throw the ball to loosen up, especially against better teams, the running options. And I love Fromm. I think he's incredibly accurate. If you look at who he's beaten out, look at who he's beaten out in college football right now. You've got Jacob Eason, who is killing it for Washington. You've got Justin Fields, who's killing it for Ohio State. You have an Arabian horse, right? Great, fantastic Arabian bloodlines, assuming that Arabian bloodlines are still good for horses. I'm not sure that's still a thing. But if it is, you got him in Jake Fromm. You have got a 100% stone-cold assassin at quarterback. I actually think Georgia doesn't use Jake Fromm enough, given how accurate he is and given how solid he is in the passing game. All right, the other big game, and I didn't talk much about this on the radio, but I thought it was a big win for Auburn on the road against Texas A&M. Now, I understand people out there who are like, Texas A&M's not good. Look at what Auburn's done. Not trying to do the hook 'em horns thing here. Sorry, Longhorn fans. But Auburn, 2 wins so far this season. Against Oregon, neutral site in Jerry World in Dallas, and now on the road in Texas against A&M in College Station. Those 2 wins are better than the 2 wins that anybody else has in college football right now. I don't know what Auburn's ceiling is, but Bo Nix and this Auburn team are going to get better week by week because he's a true freshman quarterback, and I think he fits Gus Malzahn's offense really, really well. So, when Gus Malzahn's teams have been good, 2010 national championship, 2014, right, when they played against Florida State in the Rose Bowl for the national title. Do you know what happened? It wasn't like the team started off at a high level. Every week, they got a little bit better. Cam Newton, if you go back and watch that 2010 season, was a shell of the Cam Newton that we got at the end of the season. And so the same thing was true of Nick Marshall that 2014 year when Auburn got wrecked by LSU on the road. I think it was like 35-14. And then every week after that, they just got progressively better and better. I'm not saying it's the same for Auburn this year, but I love their defense. You cannot move the ball very well against that front 7. They're not going to give up a lot of points no matter who they're playing. And so I think there's a possibility that Bo Nix is going to be able to continue to climb like we saw with Nick Marshall and like we saw with Cam Newton for the possibility of by the end of the season, as Auburn is playing Georgia and as they're playing against Alabama in November, that they can start to pick up the overall performance level at to a high degree. So that is worth contemplating. Auburn not getting a lot of attention on that win. Let's talk about Tennessee. I'm a University of Tennessee fan. This University of Tennessee team stinks to the high heavens. Jarrett Guarantano, or however you want to pronounce his name, is one of the worst 4th-year starting quarterbacks I have ever seen in the history of the SEC. All right? The guy can't see the field. He misses wide open touchdowns. He throws the ball where his receivers aren't. This game, I don't think, was as much about Florida as it was about Tennessee just being thoroughly incompetent, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. I thought the Tennessee rush defense was not bad. I'm a little bit alarmed by what I'm seeing from Jeremy Pruitt's team, and let me explain why. We all have skill sets, right? Whatever your skill set is, great coaching is about maximizing your skill set and putting you in the position to do things. In other words, Bill Belichick says, I don't ask what you can't do. I figure out what you can do and then put you in position to do that. Because if you minimize downside, you can maximize upside. Does that make sense? That, to me, is the essence of what coaching is. Minimize the downside, maximize the upside. I don't think there's any doubt that Jeremy Pruitt is a good defensive coordinator. He was effective and successful with Florida State. He was effective and successful with Alabama. He was effective and successful on some level, although it was messy, in Georgia. Okay, so he's been to multiple schools. So you can't just say, hey, you know what? It worked here at Alabama because he has great talent. Now it's not working elsewhere. Here's what troubles me, okay? Tennessee lost to BYU because of a secondary bust. In other words, their defensive backs just didn't make a tackle. Against Florida, there was most of the time nobody from Tennessee within the same area code of the receivers. Now, Kyle Trask played well, and I do think Florida is better with Kyle Trask than they would be with Felipe Franks. But Tennessee didn't cover it all. And so my concern is that Jeremy Pruitt has come into Tennessee, taken over the head coaching job, and stopped doing what he does best. Let me give you an example. I talk on the television, I talk on this show, and I talk on the radio. I think I'm good at talking. But I still think my best talent is writing. Some of you guys may disagree with that. But I haven't given up writing. I still write 8,000 to 10,000 words a week because I think it's important to keep that muscle going. And because also writing is what provides the foundation for my opinions that I speak on radio, television, Periscope, and Facebook, right? All day long, much of what I build out is written opinions that I have created. If you become a head coach, I think there are a lot of times when guys suddenly become of the opinion that they need to be an expert in everything all of a sudden. My argument would be that Jeremy Pruitt is making a mistake in not just being the head coach of the defense. Part of becoming a manager is understanding that it's unlikely you're going to be great at everything, and being willing and able to deputize to people who are better than you at things so that they can take advantage of those opportunities. All right? So what I have seen is the Tennessee defense is not elite. It should be a lot better because they have one of the best defensive coordinators in the country. He just happens to be the head coach. Instead of focusing on that, it seems that he has diluted his ability to focus on the defense, and in the same process has hurt the overall team because he's trying to focus his energies too many different places. I'll tell you this, I'm not an expert in any stretch of the imagination on X's and O's. But the only time in the last 2 years when Tennessee has pulled off upsets, do you know what they've done? They've dropped back to pass, and they've thrown 50-50 balls to their tall, talented wide receivers way down the field. I love deep passes because if you go deep in college football, worst case scenario, the ball gets intercepted and it works as a punt. If you throw short, especially if you throw wide with an inaccurate quarterback, several different things can happen, most of them not good. 1, an interception. 2, if it's completed, it doesn't go very far. 3, Jarrett Guarantano almost threw 2 different laterals trying to throw little swing passes to receivers. If you are inaccurate, paradoxically, it's oftentimes harder to throw the short passes than it is the deep ball. Because in the deep ball, your receiver can adjust to where the ball is if it's in his vicinity because he has a long time to look at it coming. He can slow down. He can speed up. He can adjust his line. All of those things can happen, which also can lead to pass interference. Why in the world are there no passes that are deep as a part of the Tennessee repertoire? That's how Tennessee beat Auburn last year. Auburn's a lot better than Tennessee. That's how Tennessee beat Kentucky last year. Guarantano made downfield passing plays that put Tennessee in a position to win. I didn't see him against Florida. Now, he missed Dominic Wooden-Anderson for a touchdown, got a bad break when the ball went off of Juwan Jennings' face mask, and he couldn't catch it. But that is frustrating to me. Now, I got an idea for everybody out there. How about on the day of the SEC championship game, we play Tennessee against Arkansas, and Tennessee against Arkansas in the Loser Bowl. Whoever wins, the opposing team has to pay the buyout. Tell me this wouldn't be riveting television. Tennessee, Arkansas, the Loser Bowl in the SEC, the buyout bowl. Whichever team loses has to pay not only their own buyout, but the $10 million buyout of the other team as well. I would watch the hell out of that game. Imagine you're Tennessee and Arkansas. You're sitting there and you know that there's $20 million riding on the outcome of this game. That would be must-see television. If Arkansas suddenly were on the hook for $20 million, Tennessee fans would be ecstatic. If Tennessee were suddenly on the hook for $20 million, Arkansas fans would be ecstatic. It would be an unbelievable contest. I'd love to see it happen. The Ozarks, as somebody said, against the Appalachian Mountains, it would be an amazing, riveting football game that at least would give something for Arkansas and Tennessee fans to look forward to, as opposed to all the beatdowns that they're going to get from now till the end of the season. Okay, Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown is now enrolling in school at Central Michigan, but this is the day after he made what I think was a disastrous decision to lose his mind on social media. And I've got a big lesson for a lot of people out there, okay? So I want you guys to listen carefully. Antonio Brown is one of the best wide receivers of his generation. He is a Hall of Fame wide receiver. Sunday morning, he went on and he questioned Robert Kraft over the massage parlor incident. He questioned Big Ben over the suspension that he got for an alleged sexual assault. And he went after Shannon Sharpe because Shannon Sharpe got fired at CBS over related issues surrounding women and impropriety. All right? That's what Antonio Brown was trying to do on his Twitter and feed. He later deleted all of those. Antonio Brown's big call sign is business is booming. Business is not booming when you have lost $30 million in guarantees because you are addicted to social media. And I think this is an important lesson for people. We have been sold by, I mean athletes and many people who in other professions of life, this idea that your brand matters a great deal in athletics. Do you know what your brand is when you are a pro athlete or a college athlete or a high school athlete or anything else? It's your excellence. If you are excellent at what you do, then your brand doesn't matter at all. Michael Jordan, never been on social media. Charles Barkley, not on social media. He's the most influential sports media person on the planet. Kawhi Leonard had the entire world at his fingertips during the spring and summer, not on social media. How about Peyton Manning, the most lucrative off-the-field earner in the history of the NFL, not on social media? All you can do is hurt your overall earnings potential with social media if you are a star athlete. You have almost nothing to gain. Antonio Brown would have made 40 or 50 million more dollars if he had never opened a social media account and just shown up, shut up, and played football. Instead, he's gotten addicted to social media. He's gotten addicted to this idea of being a brand. And what people need to recognize is that your brand is all about your excellence in sports. As soon as your excellence in sports leaves, nobody cares. Your brand is what you do best. I don't understand the number of athletes who have gotten seduced into this LeBron James worldview where their brand matters. You know what? LeBron's brand is being good at basketball. It's not Taco Tuesday. It's not what his opinion is of the California Bill. One of the things about social media is it seduces you into the idea that you need to have an opinion on everything. And oftentimes those opinions are shot off at the lip and are not well thought through at all. People accuse me of being a hot take artist or whatever they want to say. By the time I give you an opinion, I have sat down and worked out an entire argument to support my opinion. Okay? So, and if I'm not 100% confident in it, sometimes we'll talk about it on radio. I'll say, what do you think about this idea? Am I crazy for believing X or Y or Z? It's an opportunity to explore ideas. But needing to share your opinion on everything, every minute of every day is a bad thing. And so I believe that many times people are losing their minds over social media. And I think it's an addiction. Just like being addicted to alcohol or drugs, I think Antonio Brown, and maybe even our president, likes to see the likes and the favorites and the immediate reaction that flows in when he puts out an opinion. And as a result, that has led him to make a series of awful decisions. And I don't know what Antonio Brown is thinking, but I believe he is the culmination of the branding era. I mean, think about this. I've been saying it for a while. Kevin Durant's the second best basketball player in the world. He created burner Twitter accounts to comment on people's opinions of him from another anonymous account and say what he actually believed. If you are the second best in the world at something, why in the world do you need to go online and read what people are saying about you from 1 minute to the next and then create a fake account to argue with people who are much less talented at what they do than you are about you yourself? It's one of the craziest things I have ever seen, that insanely talented people are obsessed with what insanely untalented people think about them. Get off social media, AB. Show up and get 10 catches for 150 yards every week and you'll get all the attention you want. You have media availabilities every week. You can say whatever you would like to say. It's an easy proposition, and I just think that many athletes are losing their mind here. The only real athletes that I think benefit at all from social media accounts are the guys on the periphery. The offensive lineman that otherwise you might not have heard of who's really funny. The really smart linebacker who otherwise nobody knows, who wants to have a career in media in the years ahead. That is somebody who can benefit. The superstar, you don't benefit from social media. You don't benefit at all. Guys like me benefit from social media. I said this the other day. Taylor Lewan for the Titans has a podcast, okay? Do whatever you want, dude. He's got a $100 million football contract. If I had a $100 million contract to do anything, do you know how much time I'm going to spend on social media? Almost none, because I don't make money there. And I certainly don't make anywhere near $100 million. When you make that kind of salary, all social media can do is hurt you. Do you really going to need to make another $150,000 by plugging some t-shirt company? I mean, come on, just be smart. I think AB is a cautionary tale for a lot of different people out there. Speaking of cautionary tales, Jalen Ramsey called in sick today with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He said he thinks he has the flu. And by sick with the flu, what it really means is he doesn't want to play for the Jacksonville Jaguars anymore, and he's trying to escalate and force them to trade him out of Jacksonville. So how does this end? I don't know. What happens if Jalen Ramsey just refuses to show up for the rest of the year? We haven't ever had a player not show up who started playing and then bailed out. I think he wants to go play for the Chiefs, and I think he's aware that the Jags aren't willing to trade him because they're not getting enough from him. This is a story that's insanely compelling to me to follow because it's Jalen Ramsey trying to force his way out of Jacksonville. Will Jacksonville start fining him? Will they refuse to give him the rest of the money that he's owed under his contract this year? I don't know, but I've never heard of a player calling in sick and not showing up for an entire week while he's trying to force his way out with a trade. All right? Couple of other things. Everybody wanted to hype Lamar Jackson. After Lamar Jackson came out and played well against two of the three worst teams in the NFL, the Miami Dolphins and the Arizona Cardinals. Did you see what happened when he went on the road against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs? He got exposed. Not a good performance. He threw two terrible passes, one on 3rd and 15, another on 4th down, that were dead ducks, that were wobbling, that ended up getting caught by his team. Otherwise, he would have passed for like 160 yards and gotten run by 3 touchdowns. Lamar Jackson is at best an average quarterback in the NFL. And the reason why people are cheering for Lamar Jackson is because what Rush Limbaugh said a long time ago is true. There's a cottage industry of people who cheer based on the race of a quarterback. It's racist to cheer for somebody based on their color, but that's what happens. All right? Rush Limbaugh was right when he said that years and years ago. And a perfect example of that is what's going on right now with Daniel Jones. I have never seen in the history of the NFL draft a guy get ripped like Daniel Jones. Never in the history have I seen a draft pick like Daniel Jones get ripped. Do you know why Daniel Jones got ripped? Because he's a white guy from Duke. Because he is the latest white guy from Duke that everybody wants to climb aboard and rip. Whether it was Christian Laettner, whether it was back in the day, J.J. Redick, whether it was all these guys that we can just run together, Cherokee Parks, all of the white Duke basketball players got absolutely crushed in the media, all right? And as a result, the media, when Daniel Jones, a tall, statuesque white guy, got drafted, the media completely sandbagged him. I will never believe that if Daniel Jones had been the exact same player, but he had been black, that he would have gotten a scintilla of the criticism that Daniel Jones got because he's a white quarterback. And you know what happened? Daniel Jones went out and he had one of the greatest debuts of any player of all time at the quarterback position. 2 touchdowns passing, 2 touchdowns rushing, and over 300 yards to bring his team back from a massive deficit even without having Saquon Barkley. Now there's a lot of people out there rushing into their Twitter feeds to rip and tear up all the ridicule they had of Daniel Jones. Dave Gettleman is walking across the stage, brushing his shoulders off because it looks like he's got a transcendent talent to play at quarterback. And in the future, nobody's going to talk about where Daniel Jones got drafted because here's the story. If you are a great quarterback, it's impossible for you to be overdrafted or over-traded for or over anything else. Truly elite and transcendent quarterback talent is so rare that it doesn't even matter where you are drafted. So everybody out there, if Daniel Jones is as good as Daniel Jones looked in week 1, if he was drafted number 1 overall, it wouldn't matter. And if he was drafted number 724 overall, it wouldn't matter. Because ultimately, if you've got the talent, the NFL will find you, and it makes a big, huge difference. Now, I do feel bad for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because in their situation, all they had to do was make a 35-yard field goal, and they choked, and they couldn't do it, which is Tampa Bay Buccaneer football 101. Totally choke when it matters the most. But Daniel Jones, going to be a lot of people out there as Daniel Jones mania spreads that are deleting all their tweets and everything else. But it was an insult to compare Lamar Jackson to Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes had one of the greatest seasons in the history of the NFL. And you see some of these guys out there like, oh, I think Lamar Jackson against Patrick Mahomes is going to turn into the new Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning. Excuse me? Excuse me? Patrick Mahomes is on a different level, all right? Anybody out there that was trying to argue that Lamar Jackson was anywhere near his level of football acumen had an agenda. Because there ain't nothing to suggest that Lamar Jackson is anything other than an average quarterback in the NFL. When you look at his data throughout. Do you see how he played in the postseason? Do you see what happened when the San Diego Chargers, LA Chargers went out and played against him? I like Lamar Jackson. He won me a lot of money playing at Louisville. The dude is going to get broken if he keeps running, and he is at best, in my opinion, an average quarterback in the NFL. But there was an entire cottage industry agenda of people out there that wanted to argue Lamar Jackson is the next great quarterback. It was an insult to Patrick Mahomes, who I believe is truly the next great quarterback in the NFL. But we got an entire season of data to support that. The man did things that haven't ever been done before. He is incredible. He's flat out phenomenal. If I could buy stock right now in Patrick Mahomes' Super Bowl championships, I would put $1 million down on the fact that he's going to win 2 or more Super Bowls in his career, especially if you gave me an out where I could buy insurance in the event that he actually gets hurt. I feel good for Kansas City Chiefs fans because after a long time in the football wilderness, you finally have your savior, and his name is Patrick Mahomes. Finally, if I got everything in here, let me give you my SEC power ratings 1 to 14. Let me give you my SEC power ratings 1 to 14. I think you guys are going to probably agree with them. And I said already that I want Arkansas and Tennessee to have to play in the buyout bowl. But SEC power rankings. LSU is the best team in the SEC that I have seen so far. Number 2 is Bama. I'm nervous about Bama's youth on defense. I think this game between LSU and Alabama has the potential in November to be one of the greatest and most exciting college football games of all time. It's going to be completely different than the 9-6 game that we saw back in 2011. I got Georgia 3rd right now. 4th, I've got Auburn. 5th, I've got the Florida Gators. In the 6th spot, I've got Missouri. Don't sleep on Missouri. They're really damn good, I think. 7 spot, I got Texas A&M. 8, I've got Mississippi State. 9, Kentucky. 10, South Carolina. 11, Ole Miss. 12, Vanderbilt. 13, Arkansas. And 14 spot, Tennessee. All right, what about my top 10? What about my top 10? By the way, my Heisman top 4 right now. Joe Burrow 1, Tua 2nd, Jalen Hurts 3, Justin Fields 4. My Outkick national top 10. All right, I only rank teams based on games that have been played, not based on what I expected to see before the season started. Number 1, I've got LSU. Best team in the nation is LSU. Number 2, I've got Alabama. Number 3, I've got Ohio State. The Buckeyes have been phenomenal in their first 4 games. Number 5, I've got Clemson. I'm not that impressed with what Trevor Lawrence has done. He's thrown more interceptions already this year than he did all of last year. Clemson won't play a top 25 team until the playoff, in theory. The rest of the ACC is so bad they won't play a top 25 team. Oklahoma, I've got at the 6th spot. Auburn, I've got 7. Notre Dame, I've still got at 8, even though they lost, because I was impressed with what they did on the road in a tough environment in Athens. In the 9 spot, I've got Wisconsin. And in the 10 spot, I've got the Florida Gators. That is my Outkick National Top 10. You also got my best 1 to 14. I love all of you. Appreciate you spending your Monday morning with me. My name is Clay Travis. This has been Outkick the Coverage. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. Kisses. I will see you guys tomorrow. Actually, I'll see you on Lock It In here shortly. See ya. Bye. Thank you, guys. See y'all.